Hi there, I'm Ryan. My wife Emily is behind the camera right now. We are the Snail Travelers and we're traveling the world at a snail's pace. In this video we just want to give you an update on how the COVID-19 virus is impacting our travel journey. But before we tell our story, we just want to recognize that we understand that the chaos that we're experiencing now is very minor compared to those who are suffering from this directly. So our thoughts and prayers go out to those who are really suffering from this virus. So how has this impacted us? Well, Emily has a medical background and she started following everything that was going on with the COVID-19 virus back at the beginning of January. Back then it seemed like it was just pretty much contained to China. It wasn't really spreading at that time. And at that time we were in Laos, and that was in the middle of January. And everything seemed pretty normal. There wasn't really anything unusual going on. It was a little bit slow for the tourism in Laos because a lot of the tourists come from China and so they weren't coming. But other than that, everything seemed pretty much normal. After our time in Laos, we went to Bangkok where we spent a month. And when we first got there, Emily had us buy some masks because the air pollution level was pretty high at the time. So we bought these masks to wear. And a few days later, a bunch of isolated cases of the virus started popping up around Thailand. And then a few days after that, the masks totally sold out of the pharmacies. So we were really glad that we were able to get those masks when we did. But other than that, everything still seemed pretty much under control. Everything was on schedule. There weren't really any changes that we needed to make to our traveling. So we finished up our month in Bangkok and then we went on to Siem Reap in Cambodia. And there as well, there was very little impact. Everything seemed to be business as usual. We visited the temples of Angkor Wat. We went out to eat. We did some volunteer activities that we had planned. And again, our life hadn't really changed much at all. But about halfway through our time in Siem Reap, Cambodia, that's when the virus spread really started to pick up. And so we were watching what was going on. We had planned to go on to Vietnam after our time in Cambodia, but we were seeing on the news that the government of Vietnam was kind of sending out some kind of random messages that they might be closing the border to foreigners. And so we weren't really sure what to do. We knew we basically came up with 4 options on what we could do. So one of those options was to go ahead and continue on to Vietnam and hope that the border would be open when we get there. Another option, option 2, was just to stay in Cambodia and just kind of ride it out where we were. Option 3 was to go to some other country, but we weren't sure which country that would be. And option 4 was to head home to the US. But we actually ruled out option 4 pretty quickly. At that time, America wasn't really taking the virus too seriously, and we didn't want to try to get home and go through a connecting country just to be stranded while we were in transit on the way home. So in hindsight, we think that was a very wise decision. We're just looking at all the chaos going on in America right now, and we are glad we chose not to do that. So another option we had was to continue on to Vietnam, but like I said, they were talking about closing the border, and it turned out the Vietnamese government announced that they were going to close the border to foreigners on March 15th at noon. We were actually planning to take the bus to Vietnam on March 15th that same day, and we were supposed to cross the border in the early afternoon, so we would have missed it by just a couple of hours, and so we are very glad we didn't take that route. Another option was to stay in Cambodia, but there were a couple problems with that option too. One of the problems was to stay in Cambodia, we would have had to get a visa extension, and to get that extension it takes about 2 weeks of processing, and we were really running out of time. The other thing is when you get your visa extended, you only get to extend it for another 30 days, and we weren't sure if that was going to be enough time to ride out the virus. The other thing about Cambodia is the healthcare system is still kind of developing, and it's just not the best healthcare system in the world. So the other option we had, the final option, was to go to a new country. We were talking about going to Malaysia later on in our Southeast Asia traveling itinerary. So we were just praying for wisdom, and we just decided, hey, let's go to Malaysia now. We knew that Malaysia had a really good healthcare system. It's one of the top healthcare systems in the world. And we had seen that all the COVID-19 cases that were occurring in Malaysia at the time were all related to one specific religious event. Another thing we liked about Malaysia is that it has a 3-month length of stay, so we weren't going to be rushed to try and find somewhere else to go just a few weeks later if the virus was still pretty active. So we went online, we found a non-stop flight that left from Siem Reap to Kuala Lumpur, which is the capital of Malaysia. It was nice that we didn't have to go through a connecting airport because that would have been one more hassle to deal with. We were getting a little bit worried because we were seeing a lot of canceled flights just a few days before our flight was supposed to leave. More and more flights were getting canceled every day. But our flight turned out to be just fine. We arrived when we were supposed to in Kuala Lumpur. We spent one day there, and then we made our way up to Cameron Highlands, which is a mountain resort town just a little bit north of Kuala Lumpur. And that's where we were when the country issued a movement control order. Basically, they locked down the entire country and said, you cannot travel, you have to stay and shelter where you are in place. When that announcement was made and we heard about it, there was a little bit of chaos. We kind of panicked a little bit. What do we do? Do we stay here for the 2-week movement control order, or should we try and leave before the order goes into effect, which was just the next day? We went downstairs in our hostel to the lobby and to the front desk and asked if they were going to stay open during this time, and they said yep, they were going to stay open for the 2 weeks. So we made the reservations to stay 2 weeks longer. But the next day we went down to the hostel lobby and there was a sign posted that said they were going to close for the 2 weeks. So we were like, what? We had just made an extension on our reservation. So we kind of panicked a little bit. Emily went on to Airbnb to see if there were any apartments available, and we did find an apartment, but we had to wait for the host to respond to accept our reservation. So while we were waiting, we decided to go down to the bus station just to see if there were any available buses to leave Cameron Highlands. It turns out there was a bus available for the next day in the afternoon, but we were worried that bus might get canceled because the movement control order was supposed to go in effect at noon, and the bus wasn't leaving until the afternoon. So we weren't sure what to do. Do we stay here, but we don't have anywhere to stay? And on top of that, the ticket window at the bus station was getting ready to close for the night. So Emily quickly whipped out her phone and checked Airbnb, and we were so excited to see the reservation accepted message waiting for us from Airbnb. So we got our apartment confirmed, we went back to our hostel, and we packed up all our stuff to get ready to leave for the next day. So here we are in our apartment now. We really like this apartment. We just found out that the movement control order has been extended for another 2 weeks. So it looks like we're going to be here for an entire month, which is totally fine for us. We're just very thankful to have a place to stay right now. This is probably the biggest apartment we've stayed in since we left home 18 months ago to start our full-time traveling. Our Airbnb host has been absolutely fabulous. They left a ton of food and supplies for us when we first got here. The weather here is absolutely perfect, not that we can go outside to enjoy it, but it's nice that we can have the windows open, we can get fresh air every day when we're kind of stuck in our apartment here. We are very impressed with how the Malaysian government has been handling all of this. We are allowed to leave, or one of us is allowed to leave each day just to go to the grocery store to get any type of food items that we need. But the government, they're really increasing the number of test kits for the COVID-19 virus to get all the testing up to the level where it needs to be. The thing we like the most is that there's been a team from the health department that has come to visit us at our apartment pretty much every day just to check up on us and make sure we're doing okay. So what's next for us? Well, we're not exactly sure what's going to happen. We're just kind of taking everything one day at a time right now. We'll see how it goes, but we're very comfortable here, so we don't feel any need to kind of try and rush out of here. Our top priority since we left home 18 months ago has always been to stay healthy and to stay safe. So we are perfectly healthy right now. We're staying safe here. We hope all of you are staying safe and healthy as well. And we just want to thank you for watching this video, and we're going to suggest that you check out some of the other videos that we've made in the links above. And also be sure to check out our website at snailtravelers.com to find out more about our world travel adventure.